I think I speak for most Godzilla fans when I say we've been eating good. The teaser trailer for Godzilla Minus One dropped. I made a reaction video detailing my first impressions. After thinking about it more, I started brainstorming what exactly needs to happen in this film. So, here are 7 things we need to see happen in Godzilla Minus One. It needs to be faithful. Admittedly, my knowledge of post-war Japan leaves much to be desired. It'd be great if this film served as a gateway for many to learn more about this time in history. I know I've been researching the topic more because of this film. I understand, doing that with a giant rampaging monster is difficult. Last I checked, Godzilla isn't real. Bummer. But it'd be nice to see this film explore real historical events while faithfully depicting Japanese society and culture at the same time. If the film pulls an Inglourious Bastards and Godzilla's involvement completely rewrites history, I wouldn't object. On the contrary, I'm a huge nerd regarding what-if scenarios, particularly those about history. It always leaves room for inventive stories. Either way, I'll be satisfied if the film doesn't hold back, and gives us an honest to Mothra account of post-war Japan. One more thing to think about. The film could cover a multi-year stretch. We could see Godzilla inexplicably change the fate of Japan, perhaps making it regress back into imperial nationalism. It could reignite the Pacific War. The Japan Self-Defense Forces could form several years sooner as a direct response to kaiju. Godzilla might force the Allied powers to abandon Japan completely. And it might even compel the United States to drop more atomic bombs to try and kill Godzilla, making more threats like Godzilla along the way, while also destroying Japan in the process. Remember, Japan is defenseless at this time. It can't defend itself from Godzilla. Will the US help Japan in its time of need? I don't know. And what concerns me is I could see it going either way. The Americans might not be willing to risk their lives for a country they were in a brutal, bloody war against just a few years prior. As we'll soon see, there's despair upon despair. This film will not hold back. Godzilla needs to be terrifying. To quote the director Yamazaki, "Post-war Japan lost everything. Draw a presence that gives unprecedented despair that adds another blow to it." With that in mind, the title Godzilla Minus One was born. And in order to depict that together with the staff, we have created a setting that points despair upon despair, with a figure of Godzilla that looks as if fear itself is walking. I think it's the culmination of the movies I've made so far, and I think it has become a work worthy of being experienced rather than watched in a theater. I would like you to experience the most terrifying Godzilla in the best environment. I've been a Godzilla fan my entire life. I can only count the number of times I've feared Godzilla on one hand. Shin Godzilla came the closest. I get goosebumps when I read Godzilla Minus One's director Yamazaki's comments about Godzilla looking as if he's fear itself. So here's a question. What would make Godzilla terrifying? Firstly, we need to care about the people he's terrorizing. The human element is something I will address soon. Second, Godzilla needs to make us wary before appearing on screen. This is done by showing the aftermath of his destruction, seeing not only the collateral damage, but the suffering it's causing, and no force on Earth can stop him when he finally rears his ugly head. Just kidding, King. You look great. In the hands of a capable filmmaker, which this film has in spades, there are many ways of making your monster scary. Godzilla attacking out of the blue, with our main characters caught in the crossfire, there's room for heart-pounding suspense. But what makes something horrifying is the longevity of the terror it invokes. Godzilla has something that can do just that. Godzilla's atomic breath must be the most terrifying thing in the movie. For this to work, it needs to be used unexpectedly and sparingly. When it's discharged, it's hell on earth, but being highly destructive and raising a high body count is not enough. We know it'll be responsible for a tremendous loss of life, but we need to see how threatening it is to the living. Godzilla's atomic breath needs to be a blight to all living things. Using it comes as a last resort, which makes Godzilla even more terrifying. 3. Godzilla needs character development. This might be one of the biggest differences between how fans interpret Godzilla as a character, and I'm placing a Titan-sized emphasis on the character part. In many films, Godzilla is less of a character and more like a force of nature. He's usually responsible for forcing the humans to develop by the end of the story. However, there are cinematic exceptions where we see Godzilla exhibiting not only a unique personality, but taking his place among the cast. Granted, doing the latter is notoriously difficult, as, unlike giant monsters like King Kong, making Godzilla relatable stretches our suspension of disbelief. Just by enjoying a Godzilla movie, you need to suspend your disbelief, so that says a lot. For many, making Godzilla a relatable, emotional character is a challenging endeavor, and given the seriousness of this film and how it's invoking despair upon despair, it might be counter to try and, make this rampaging embodiment of fear be relatable or endearing or misunderstood. But it can be done. What's difficult is portraying Godzilla as a seemingly unstoppable force of nature with a compelling character arc. It's like giving the killer asteroid from Armageddon a human-like personality. Actually, that might have worked. Number 4. The story needs atomic allegories. Since his inception, Godzilla is usually portrayed as an allegory of nuclear terror. It doesn't seem like that will change in -1, which is great. However, I'd go further. In recent years, phenomenal miniseries like Chernobyl and The Days tap into the existential horror of nuclear power and the radioactive pestilence it could unleash. Such projects have made me wonder, is Godzilla even an effective atomic metaphor? Nevertheless, maybe it's high time to do both. Godzilla can be the catalyst of nuclear disaster, leading to an even greater danger than Godzilla himself. Radiation is extremely harmful to all living things. Godzilla has always been the exception to that rule. What if that's no longer the case? What if radiation is slowly, painfully killing him? What if Godzilla is lashing out because he's in tremendous pain? Think of an animal with rabies. Only Godzilla is spreading his radioactive sickness to everything and everyone. Assuming it's possible, killing Godzilla may trigger an even greater catastrophe. We need Kong. The world needs... Sorry, wrong script. We need monsters. Standalone Godzilla films are thrilling because more attention is placed on the conflict between Godzilla and humans. Gojira, The Return of Godzilla, and Shin Godzilla are proof of this. So, do we really need more monsters? Given the gratuitous amounts of despair this film will unleash, it's a safe bet we'll see many monsters in this movie. Just not all of them will be kaiju. Humans are monsters is a trope we're all too familiar with, yet we've rarely seen it in the Godzilla franchise. Yes, there have been assassins, incompetent politicians, and sociopathic CEOs. But what about those who would have been decent people if given a fair chance, but due to terrible circumstances have become pale imitations of their former selves? There's a direct correlation between wealth inequality and crime. Now imagine heavily impoverished areas ravaged by the horrors of war. In this void of hope, despair begets cruelty, turning neighbors against each other. It's not easy to say we need more monsters when the monsters are people doing unimaginably cruel things. It is, however, an honest depiction of what it means to be human. Oh, and I think it'd be cool if this Godzilla fought a second Godzilla. Earlier, I talked about how radiation could be slowly killing Godzilla. Well, what if another Godzilla had radiation poisoning, turning it into a disease-ridden monster? It would be the first time Godzilla fought another Godzilla. Not a robot in disguise, or a bioengineered cosmic clone, but a fellow member of his species, possibly a member of his family. It could be his mate, it could be a sibling, it could be his child. At the time of this recording, we know very little about this film. Godzilla might not even be the first monster in its recorded history. Even though I'm fine with Godzilla fighting another monster, like Anguirus, that would be cool, making Godzilla's main adversary another Godzilla breaks new ground. Furthermore, Godzilla being at odds with another Godzilla accurately reflects the tribal conflicts of mankind, reinforcing a common theme throughout the kaiju genre. We're not so different. Hey, speaking of mankind, no, not that mankind. Love you, Mick. We need compelling human characters. Make no mistake, Godzilla films need a strong human presence. I understand some Godzilla fans and non-fans alike think nobody cares about the human characters. This couldn't be further from the truth. Humans play a vital role in these films. Earlier, I mentioned how difficult it is for audiences to relate to Godzilla. That's why we have human characters, because we're human, I think. And we need strong human characters to cheer for and root against. We need great characters that represent the best and worst of us. 7. Yamazaki deserves our support. Seriously, this man seems destined to make what could be one of the finest Godzilla films ever made. From Always Sunset 2 to Godzilla the Ride, Yamazaki has been gunning to direct the radioactive giant for over a decade. I, for one, am happy for him. Ganbatte kudasai. Best of luck. I can't wait to see Godzilla -1. Something tells me it's going to be great. You, the viewer, share your epic Godzilla ideas. I know you have them. Hey, thanks for stomping by, everyone. I'm Tom, and I'll destroy you all utterly later. Peace. Peace for who?